Have you join us tonight for another Instagram Live that we're so happy to have. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our wellness director here at Meraki. His name is Dr. George Yakos. I just need him to ask to join, but it's his first time, so we're still kind of playing around with him joining. So Dr. George, you'll see here somewhere in the Instagram, you'll see for you to join me. So we're just waiting for him to ask to join me, and then I will add him. Let me add. I'm so sorry, everyone. Thank you for being patient. 1 second here. All right, Dr. George. So go ahead and say yes. There you are. All right.
I finally figured out the technology.
Yes, that's okay. Don't you worry. We're all new at this. So thank you so much for joining us. So
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So for the Instagram Live tonight, I am here with Dr. George Yakos. He is our wellness medical director here at Meraki. He is a doctor of cardiologist for the past 28 years. So we're so lucky to have him here with us. And he is so knowledgeable, not only on cardiology, but on so many topics. So one of the topics that we are going to be talking about tonight is NAD. And what is NAD? What are the benefits of it? Who is it for? So I'm going to go ahead and take it over. Dr. George.
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to give a little bit of a backstory. I've been doing cardiology for many years, and it became really apparent that 15 minutes with somebody is not an appropriate amount of time to get to the bottom of what's causing their medical problems and prevent medical problems. So I've entered the functional realm fully realizing that the conventional realm has not been able to solve a lot of the recurrent problems and the very common cardiac problems. So in the functional realm, in the regenerative realm, you're able to help people not only get better, but you can get them to live better for a longer period of time in their life. So you're really making lives better. You're not just treating a symptom. And so NAD is one of those therapies that really has a big niche in the wellness community and the regenerative community, in living better and longer community. So NAD is a chemical that is found in every cell of your body. And interestingly enough, every 20 years that we age, your NAD levels drop by 50%. And very likely, if you had no NAD in your body, you would die within 30 seconds. That's how important this one chemical is to your body and its body's and your body's functions. So it has a role in treating brain issues, heart issues, muscle issues, but overall, it's part of the antioxidant mechanism, the way to squash inflammation, the way to produce energy from your food. And to feed every cell of every part of your body. So it plays a major role in your health and your sense of well-being. Interestingly, your diet may be playing some role in how you're getting NAD into your system, but your body has mechanisms in there to recycle the NAD that it already has in there. And it's that recycling mechanism that is most responsible for your NAD levels. So anything that you do exogenously is trying to stimulate this recycling mechanism, but it's the recycling mechanism itself that starts to reduce by 50% every 20 years. So if you're telling me, well, is this for me? Well, if you've gone more than 20 years in your life, 50% of your NAD levels are probably dropping because those enzymes that are involved in recycling are not doing their job as well anymore. And there's strategies to improve that. And IV NAD levels are sort of a shortcut to improving your NAD levels and treating a lot of various symptoms that happen from low NAD levels.
Now, we did receive some questions for the past few days. We've been posting on our Instagram about NAD, and people have been asking questions. Do you want me to go ahead and ask some of the questions that people asked?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so one of the questions is, how often or I'm sorry, I'll start with another one. So a bodybuilder actually reached out and he says, "Hi, I'm a bodybuilder. How can NAD help me being a bodybuilder?"
So remember, it's involved in squashing inflammation, and if you're a bodybuilder, you're essentially causing inflammation every time that you work out, and you want your body to recuperate as fast as possible. That's what NAD is helping your mitochondria do. So especially in people who exercise on a routine basis and exercise vigorously, NAD plays a very big role in your recovery and in your muscle building over time. So whether that's a replacement through oral supplementation or intravenous, both strategies can be used. And obviously the older you are when you're working out, the more important NAD becomes as something that you want to replace and keep at high levels in your body.
Okay, wonderful. Now, how often should you get an NAD drip if that is the way that they take NAD? How often?
Listen, I think NAD drip is going to get higher levels of NAD in your bloodstream. In your body, it will break down into the various substrates that your cells use to get into that recycling machinery and produce the NAD inside your cells. IV NAD in and of itself cannot get into cells, but it could break down into the 5 components that make up NAD, travel across your cells, get inside, recombine, and then get involved in that energy producing center of your cell called the mitochondria. The one place that you can get NAD directly into cells is in the brain. There actually happen to be channels that are meant to take this very large molecule called NAD and directly suck it into their cells, and that's in the brain. In the rest of the body, it's going to break it down, take the pieces, put them in the cells, and help in recovering from inflammation, essentially. So it could be, the sky is the limit. But in somebody who's eating okay, somebody who's exercising and is exercising regularly and is not doing anything too strenuous, is not sick, IV NAD can be taken at least once a week, if not more often. But when you're sick, very clearly, even during this pandemic in the last 3 years, people were talking about how people had comorbidities, and that was one of the biggest ways to gauge who was not going to do well with a COVID infection. And in reality, it's NAD levels that dictated who was going to die and who was going to survive. And I'm sure people have heard many stories of people who are sick going to get IV infusions of NAD and feeling tremendously better. And what you're doing is essentially feeding the recuperative mechanisms of your cells. So when you're sick, you definitely want to do it more often. When you're not sick, you may not need to do it as often. Especially if you're taking good care of yourself from a dietary perspective and a supplement perspective.
And we just were asked a question. What foods support NAD levels and what strategies are best to improve the recycling mechanism? Thank you. That's
a really good question, because that's the most powerful way for you to increase your NAD levels. So if you can get NAMPT, which is the main enzyme that's involved in recycling the substrates back into NAD, which is what you need to produce energy inside your cells, that would be a fantastic strategy. Aside from taking the supplements like NMN, NMR, Nicotinamide, the typical things that you'll find in B-complex vitamins, getting that enzyme to work, because that's the thing that drops every 20 years by 50%, is a great strategy, because that's where you're going to recoup most of your NAD. And believe it or not, it's time-restricted eating. It's ingesting things like EGCG, which you'll find in a lot of the green teas. And it's also working out while fasting. So if you're on a time-restricted feeding pattern, that next morning, let's say you stopped eating at 4 p.m. the night before, all you did was hydrate well. The next morning, before you take your first meal, go and do a workout routine. And if you haven't been working out, all it would take is about 15 minutes, 3 times a week for 3 weeks for you to actually cause a big jump in your NAD levels by 127%. Now, if you time restrict your eating and do the same thing, you'll again do a tremendous job in elevating your NAD levels. So time-restricted eating, exercising before you break your fast, and EGCG are great behaviors and things that you can do from a food perspective that will make a big difference.
Yeah. Now, if someone were to supplement NAD with ingesting it pill version or versus like an IV drip, are there any side effects that you can get with NAD?
Honestly, very, very few. I mean, you're giving a substrate that your body needs and thrives on. Obviously, when you're taking supplements, there's always a concern for stomach upset, but you're not going to ingest levels of NAD that are going to cause harm, is what it comes down to. And I think IV NAD becomes important when you're sick, but what does sick mean would be a big thing to define. So if you feel like you're not sleeping well, you're having chronic fatigue, or you're having muscle aches, joint aches, what a lot of people have been when people have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, these are very typical kinds of symptoms. If you're feeling tired all the time, or it's sort of going in cycles in your life, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling anxious, NAD plays a role in squashing these kinds of symptoms. So it's not just being sick, but it's also these things that we always attribute to, I'm getting old, that's the way I'm supposed to feel. I'm 40 plus years old, what do I expect? You shouldn't expect that. You should feel better than that. And that's really the goal of what we do at Meraki, is we're getting people to live long, very healthy lives, and make it so that if you're going to get sick, it's going to be for the shortest period of time in your life. That's the goal.
Now, we were just asked a question from Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, to ask this question. She asked, how do you determine what your NAD levels are before starting a treatment? So I'm assuming the IV drip. How do we do that?
That's going to be a big game changer when you could do that accurately. So the answer is, it's very difficult right now unless you're involved with a research protocol. The biggest concern being is that NAD is continuously changing in the blood sample they pull on you. So you would have to pull a blood sample, freeze it, get it to a lab that is expert at measuring NAD levels and has the right equipment. And right now, it's only research centers that are doing that kind of stuff. I can assure you there are people right now trying to make it more commercially available. And when that happens, that's going to be a big game changer, because people are going to know where they stand with their NAD and what they should be doing more aggressively to pump up those levels.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for answering that. And now I did receive another question. Is NAD, either the IV version or pill version, good for people that have sciatica?
Again, so let's go back to, before I answer that question directly, let me answer it with a little bit of background. So what consumes NAD, right? It's not just the fact that you're getting older and maybe your enzymes are not working as efficiently, the NAMPT that's involved in recycling, but it's also inflammation. So there's something called CD38, which is expressed on white blood cells. And when CD38 gets activated, it's essentially sending out signals that, hey, there's something going on here, we got to attack it. So it is essentially triggering inflammation in your body. And this is the biggest consumer of NAD in your body. So what does that mean? That means anything you could do to reduce inflammatory processes in your body are going to reduce how much NAD you're consuming. So that should be one of the biggest parts of what you're doing on a daily basis. Yeah, intermittent fasting squashes inflammation, absolutely. But there are people that are walking around with stealth infections, from Lyme disease to chronic autoimmune diseases to injuries that they've had recently, between a fractured patella and sciatica because they have a disc that herniated that's really killing them. This is all inflammation, and the cells there are trying to reduce inflammation, so you're consuming NAD in that process. So if you want to raise your NAD levels, getting rid of inflammation is the key. And there's a lot of strategies out there. And one of the things that we do at Meraki is that we not only take that comprehensive history, we're not only doing an exam and we're doing an intense lab work on you, but we're checking inflammatory levels, and we're trying to isolate the source of the inflammation, whether it be gums, whether it be leaky gut, or toxic metals you've been exposed to, or toxicities that you're getting in your diet. You got to get these out of the way if you want your NAD levels to remain high so that you can feel youthful and energetic. The question, I think, was, repeat the question because that was like the backstory.
It was just, if someone has sciatica, should they be taking NAD pills every day / should they be getting IV drips with NAD?
The answer is absolutely. You should be doing whatever it takes to raise your NAD levels, whether that's from a supplement orally, supplement intravenously. But the more neurologic your symptoms are, such as fatigue, brain fog, lack of clarity, lack of concentration, the more important getting the intravenous form becomes. And especially in people who have chronic autoimmune conditions, or are suffering from post-COVID, long haul, or having recurrent Lyme infections where it just knocks them out, or if they have fibromyalgia and all that inflammation just knocks, IV NAD does wonders for these kinds of situations, on top of other things like ozone, peptide therapy, all that stuff. But for NAD specifically, yes, it's absolutely essential because you need to feed your mitochondria what it needs in order to squash that inflammation and recover as soon as possible.
Wow, thank you for that. That's so much information. I love learning from you, Dr. George. Really, we've been doing NAD treatments here since we've opened at Meraki, but ever since you've been working with us, I feel like I know more about it. So I really appreciate that. We did have someone else ask a question. Do you need to get peaks and throughs for NAD levels?
Peaks and troughs. So again,
troughs.
yeah, so that goes back, peak meaning at the highest level, trough meaning at the lowest level. But knowing how NAD is continuously sort of flipping on and off, it's very hard to measure with current technology unless you're part of a research protocol. So I think when we finally have that commercially available, I think that will be very powerful. So at that time, I would highly recommend it, yes.
Okay, and then we had someone else ask, I heard NAD can help with anxiety and depression and has helped with mental health. And I think you kind of already answered that, but if you want to talk a little bit about mental health and how it can help with that.
Oh, and again, so your highest concentration of mitochondria, you might think would be in a muscle or a heart. It turns out your highest concentration of mitochondria are in your brain, all right? So if your brain is fighting off something that's causing anxiety, depression, brain fog, and you have a channel that allows NAD, the huge molecule, to get directly into the brain and do its job, that's where you're going to see a big impact. So yes, it has a huge impact on anxiety and depression because A, it's working in the mitochondria in the brain, B, it's peripherally, it's helping to reduce inflammation, which is the biggest consumer of NAD. And when you reduce inflammation, people feel better. So therefore, mentally, they feel better as well.
Okay, and then we just had another question from Jacqueline. Thank you, Jacqueline, for this wonderful question. Does oral NAC and glutathione convert to NAD?
It does not. It does not. But it is an important part of... It is an important part in detoxifying. They both play a role in detoxifying and converting certain substrates to important enzymes and chemicals you need in your body to recover while it's fighting off infection, inflammation, all of those conditions that lead to chronic health conditions.
Okay, wonderful. Now, a lot of people, I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but we do have NMN here, which can help lead to help promote NAD in the body,
right.
Correct?
So NMN and NMR are the substrates that NAMPT, that enzyme I was telling you about, that plays a big role in reclaiming NAD and getting NAD back to higher levels. It's NMN and NMR that are the substrates that are used by that enzyme to create the NAD. So yes, supplementing with these will help, but if you could increase your NAD levels by 40-50% by using NMN and NAD, doing a 15-minute weight training routine that's light 3 times a week for 3 weeks will increase your NAD levels by 127%. So, so what we would be talking about with our clients would be, what's your exercise regimen? What can you do to improve your NAD? And this is what you can do from a diet perspective. This is how to exercise, when to exercise, and use EGCG. These are all recommendations. When you put them together, you're going to be ahead of the game compared to most people that aren't even paying attention to NAD.
Oh, wonderful. We actually were just asked another question. So if you are supplementing with NAD supplements, is there a better time of day to take them, morning or night?
So remember, inflammation chews up your NAD, right? That's the biggest consumer of NAD. So when is it that you're going to have the least amount of inflammation? And that's going to, and especially if you're not eating a late dinner, you're going to have your biggest opportunity to have your body not working hard at night after you've had that last meal, whether it's 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and you're doing that time-restricted eating, up until morning time before you have your next meal. Because every time you eat, you are triggering inflammation. That's how your body is consuming, screening your food to make sure it doesn't have any infectious particles in there, because your immune system is lining your gut. So as you're stimulating your immune system, you're causing inflammation. So the bigger break that you take between meals, that's going to be when you want to take your NAD, because you'll actually get more bang for your buck there.
Okay.
Because it's not being consumed as much.
Okay. And then one of the other questions was with or without food, but with what you just stated, it seems like you should take it in the morning before you eat and on an empty stomach.
Or many hours after you've eaten at night, maybe at bedtime, if you're doing that kind of a thing where you're eating early afternoon so you can get the biggest amount of time not eating. So not everybody is for time restricted eating, but you don't have to make it where you're only eating 6 hours a day. You can make it where you're eating in a 12-hour time period and gradually build up to more significant time restricted eating, where there's tremendous health benefits between what NAD can do and what reducing inflammation can do in activating these longevity genes, like the sirtuins and the FOXO3s. These are tremendous things that make you live longer and healthier.
Now, we've actually just been getting a lot of questions right now about NAD supplements. Now, is there a supplement of NAD from a certain company that you would recommend? We do our own custom vitamins here at Meraki, so that's usually how we get NAD for clients. But of course, is there another company that you would recommend that is reputable for a good source of NAD?
I've looked at the one that you guys have at Meraki, and I think it's very good. There are other versions also where, obviously, anything that's in the capsular form or powder form is going to be absorbed better. Anything that's going to be in the liquid form is going to be absorbed better. Mm-hmm. So I can't say that there's one particular company that I would recommend, but believe it or not, B-complex vitamins that have at least 50 milligrams of nicotinamide in them, if you take that 3 times a day, that can do just as good a job as doing a liquid version or doing the more expensive versions of NAD. So again, your symptoms dictate IV. If you're feeling sick or you're not feeling well, IV NAD is going to get you healed quicker. If it's a matter of maintenance, I think just B-complex vitamins taken more than once a day, which most people unfortunately do. They only take it once a day. Nicotinamide, you would have to take 50 milligrams minimum 3 times a day to have an impact on your levels. And then NMN and NMR also can increase your levels by about 40%. And like I said, you guys have a good quality NMN and NMR there.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The other way, so I received another question, and the only way to get proper NAD is the IV or IM injection. What do you think about a patch?
Honestly, I don't have enough experience with the patch, but things do get absorbed transdermally. And again, NAD is intravenous NAD and intramuscular NAD are very big molecules. They break down when they're not going into the brain, into the substrates that your body can use. So I don't know what the metabolism is when it's getting soaked in through the skin, especially with such a large molecule. You may not be able to get the large molecule of NAD in to the point where your brain's going to get the benefit out of that. I think intravenous is more likely to do that.
Okay, that's wonderful. Well, I love all these questions. I hope we answered most of everyone's questions. If you feel like or you just felt shy to ask a question, you are more than welcome. For everyone watching, you can DM us any questions and we'll go ahead and we'll ask Dr. George them and write back to you if we don't know the answer for them. But before we hang up, does anyone else have any more questions? We'll just wait a moment just in case. And is there anything else, Dr. George, that you would like to add to this conversation on NAD?
Yeah, I think it's one tool in the tool chest of things to get people feeling better and doing better long term, but extremely important. So if you can take anything out of this, it's what are you going to do to reduce inflammation in your body? What are you going to do to make sure that your body has the substrate it needs? And are you going to be doing a little bit of exercise? Because 15 minutes of exercise, I think almost everybody could dedicate 3 times a week. And to hear that doing something like that 3 times a week, and we're not even talking about lifting your weight. We're talking about a dumbbell routine for 15 minutes, do a pushing and pulling exercise, 15 minutes, vary it if you want. If you want to do it every day, you might get a bigger impact. So you're not looking to get sore. That's inflammation. You're looking to start recruiting capillaries that move blood around, move oxygen into your mitochondria, and these things increase your NAD levels. That's a huge thing. If you could take that from today and just do a light weight training routine for 15 minutes 3 times a week, you're going to be far ahead. And if you're already exercising, all those other strategies of time-restricted eating, exercising without breaking the fast, and supplementing the right way can go a long way. And then when you have big symptoms, that IV weapon is there for you, and it makes a big difference.
And I guess I'm assuming like a really strenuous yoga workout would also be good to increase the NAD levels. Yeah,
Absolutely.
You love yoga.
Anything that gets you sweating and breathing.
Okay, and then just to let everyone know, Dr. George Jacos, he wrote a blog about NAD, and it is going to be on our website very soon. So if you feel like you want to take a read or want to share the knowledge of NAD, it is going to be on mobilerocky.com. So you could always read that, and I will post this on our Instagram page, so you can always come back and watch it. And of course, yes, having a non-inflammatory diet could also help with increasing NAD levels. Correct, Dr. George?
Absolutely. Okay. And I want people to not only send in questions, but if you have topics you want to cover in the future, send it in. I think in the next few weeks we'll be covering things like peptides, methylene blue, and a variety of other things that people are talking about, so we can get educated on it and decide if it's something that's right for us.
Exactly. Yes. Every week on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, we're going to be having the Instagram lives with Dr. George, and it's just going to be a wonderful time. So if anyone has any topics that you just feel like you really can't find anything about them, please go ahead and DM us your questions or what you want the live to be about, because we have a fun list ahead of us, but we're always welcoming more and new topics. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Dr. George. We appreciate you being here. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
All right. Have a good day. Very typical kinds of symptoms. If you're feeling tired all the time, or it's sort of